The air inside the small sunlit library was calm. Thick silence floated between the polished wood shelves and books that had long since lost their readers. It wasn't a press room, nor a stage, just 2 chairs, 1 window, and a quiet moment. Baron Trump, now 19, sat with his hands folded tightly in his lap. He wore no suit, no tie, just a simple hoodie and jeans. Across from him sat Elon Musk. No cameras, no microphones, just curiosity and the weight of something deeper pulling the conversation forward. "You ever feel like people only expect you to say something safe?" Baron asked, his voice low, steady. Elon tilted his head. "Almost every day." Baron smiled faintly, but his eyes were serious. "Then I'll risk not being safe today." Elon leaned forward slightly, sensing the shift. Baron looked out the window before speaking again. "I've read a lot of books, seen a lot of people talk about faith, politics, science, and I respect all of it. But last night I read something Jesus said, and it stopped me." Elon's brow furrowed with interest. "What did he say?" Baron inhaled slowly. "He said, 'Whoever wants to be first must be servant of all.'" He paused, then looked Elon dead in the eyes. "Why does that line feel like a revolution?" The question hung there. Not religious, not political, just human. Elon didn't answer right away. He looked at the young man across from him, son of one of the most powerful figures on the planet, asking not how to win, but how to serve. "Do you think," Baron continued, "that if we really believed that, if we really lived like the greatest people were the kindest, would the world still look the way it does?" Elon blinked slowly. "No, I think it'd look unrecognizable. And maybe," Baron added, voice cracking just slightly, "that's what scares people, because we've all learned to climb, but Jesus taught people how to kneel." That line landed heavy. Even Elon, who had engineered rockets and reshaped industries, seemed disarmed. "You've been quiet all your life, Baron," he said softly. "Why now?" Baron hesitated, and then, almost in a whisper, said, "Because the world's too loud with opinions and too silent about truth, and I'm tired of being silent." Elon looked down at his hands. Something was shifting in him too. Baron leaned in. "Do you think truth still matters if no one applauds it?" That's when Elon looked up, and for a moment the two weren't inventor and president's son. They were just 2 men sitting in the ruins of noise, chasing something eternal. And in that silence Baron asked something that pierced deeper. What if Jesus didn't come to make us powerful, but to make us honest? Elon didn't speak right away. The room seemed to shrink under the weight of that last question. What if Jesus didn't come to make us powerful, but to make us honest? For a man who'd spent his life calculating forces, launching rockets, building worlds, Elon found himself stunned, not by data but by depth. Something in Baron's words sliced through the armor of intellect and pride that so often protects the powerful. "Honesty," Elon said finally, "isn't profitable. Not in business, not in politics." Baron nodded. "Yeah, but it's healing. And I think the world's hurting more than it's winning." There was a pause, one of those sacred ones that don't ask to be filled, just felt. "You know," Elon said quietly, "I've had billions of people use my technology, but not one invention has made me feel as human as this conversation is making me feel right now." Baron smiled softly, but his eyes were damp. "I've lived in a house where everyone thinks power is what holds everything together, but I'm starting to wonder if it's grace." Elon leaned forward. "Grace?" Baron nodded. "Yeah, the way Jesus forgave people while they were still hurting him, not after they apologized, not after they earned it, but while." He looked down, his voice grew quieter. "My dad has faced the whole world's judgment, some of it fair, some of it not, but I see the weight he carries, and I wonder how different things would be if people didn't just throw opinions, but offered prayers." Elon blinked, eyes wet now too. "Do you pray?" Baron nodded. "Not like a religious checklist, more like a conversation, with someone I believe is still listening, even when I don't make sense." Elon sat back. "You ever feel like faith is dangerous in a world that worships certainty?" Baron looked at him and whispered, "I think faith is dangerous, but only to our pride." That line sank in. "You're saying," Elon said slowly, "that pride blinds us to the kind of truth that heals us." Baron's voice was gentle. I think pride tells us to pretend we're perfect, but Jesus told us to admit when we're lost, because that's when we can finally be found. A long pause. And then Elon asked, almost like a child, "Do you think it's too late for me?" Baron didn't hesitate. "No. I think the moment you ask that question, you're already being found." Suddenly, the moment didn't feel small anymore. It felt cosmic, like two human souls had met in a quiet room, while eternity leaned in to listen. Then Baron whispered something that no one expected, something that would soon echo across headlines, podcasts, hearts. "If Jesus walked into this room right now, I don't think he'd talk about politics. I think he'd just sit down and ask if we were okay." Elon stared at the floor, as if Baron's words had unlocked something buried. The kind of silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred, like neither man wanted to disturb what had just been said. "If Jesus walked in here," Elon finally said, "and just asked if we were okay, I don't know what I'd say." Baron leaned back in his chair, hands folded over his stomach. "I think most of us wouldn't know, because we're so used to hiding how not okay we really are." Elon nodded. "The world teaches us to perform, to smile, to win. But Jesus," Baron whispered, "taught people how to break." The words hung in the air, sharp and soft at once. "You know what scares me the most?" Baron asked. "Not failure, not criticism, but what happens if we spend our whole lives pretending and never once get honest with God?" Elon looked over. "And what would honesty sound like?" Baron didn't pause. "Something like, 'God, I don't know who I am without all the noise.'" Elon's eyes glistened. "I don't say these things," Baron continued, "because I've figured them out. I say them because I've felt them. I've been in the room full of applause and still felt invisible. I've watched my dad try to carry a nation while carrying wounds no one sees. I've heard people mock, praise, hate, defend, all in the same sentence. And none of it answers the question that haunts every quiet moment. Who am I when no one's watching?" Elon was silent. Something inside him was shifting, unraveling. Then Baron turned the table. "Elon, you've built more than most people could dream of, but have you ever built a place for your soul to rest?" That question struck with unexpected force. Elon chuckled, but it was hollow. "I've built rockets, tunnels, satellites, but a resting place for my soul?" He shook his head. "That's the one thing I've ignored." Baron's voice softened. "Jesus didn't tell people to build empires, he told them to lay burdens down." "Why do you think people resist that?" Elon asked. Baron thought for a second. "Because burdens give us identity. If I let go of proving myself, if I lay down being right, powerful, successful, then who am I?" Elon nodded slowly, eyes distant. "That's the real fear. But maybe," Baron added gently, "that's also the real invitation." "What invitation?" Elon asked. "To be known," Baron said, "not for what we've done, but for who we are when we stop trying to be everything." Another long pause, and then Baron whispered, "I think that's what Jesus wanted all along, not to impress us, but to free us." That line struck deep. A tear escaped Elon's eye, though he didn't wipe it away. And then Baron asked something quietly, but the internet would later explode over it. "What if the greatest miracle isn't healing the sick, but healing the unseen?" The sunlight through the window had shifted now, stretching long across the floor like time itself was slowing down to listen. Elon sat still, hands resting in his lap, no longer the man known for speed or invention, but a man paused by truth. "That question," Elon said slowly, "about the unseen, I've never thought of it like that." Baron leaned forward slightly. "Me neither, until I realized the worst pain in life is the kind no one claps for, the pain that doesn't bleed." Elon met his eyes. "Like what?" Baron looked down for a moment. "Like growing up in a gold house, but feeling emotionally homeless. Like watching your father be the most talked about man in the world, and still not knowing how to talk to him about the things that matter." The honesty in his voice cracked something open. "I don't want sympathy," Baron added. "I want truth. And Jesus never gave people pity. He gave them perspective." Elon breathed in sharply. "And what's your perspective now?" Baron didn't rush. "That silence is sacred. That faith isn't a rule book, it's a rescue. And that the greatest power isn't being above others, it's being willing to kneel beside them." Elon blinked back tears. That's the opposite of how the world works. Baron smiled faintly. Exactly. That's what makes it holy. Then, after a moment, Baron said something few his age would dare to admit. I don't want to live for noise anymore. I want to live for something eternal. Elon was quiet, stunned by the boldness behind such a simple sentence. You think people will understand you? Elon asked. No, Baron replied honestly. But Jesus never asked to be understood. He just asked people to follow. And do you? Elon asked. Follow him? Baron looked him in the eyes. I try. Not perfectly. Not with religion. Just with realness. I talk to him like I'm talking to you, not always with answers, but always with openness. Elon exhaled deeply, almost trembling. I've always admired honesty, but I've built a life avoiding my own. Baron nodded. Me too sometimes. But Jesus didn't say, come to me with answers. He said, come to me all who are weary. That's it. The room was silent again. And then Baron asked one more question. It wasn't loud. It didn't trend. But for Elon Musk, and millions who would one day hear it, it changed everything. What if all our chasing is just a long way home to the one place we never had to earn? Elon leaned back in his chair, as if something inside him had finally broken open. Softly, silently. Not in pieces of regret, but in the kind of surrender that can only happen when truth replaces noise. That one place, he echoed, where we never had to earn anything. Baron nodded. Where love wasn't conditional, where value wasn't measured by what we accomplished. Elon's voice came low and rough. That place sounds like a myth. Baron looked at him gently. It's not. It's a person. There was no debate, no argument, just stillness. Just that one statement, hanging between them like a rope leading home. You know, Elon said after a moment, I've spent my life thinking about the future, building for it, predicting it, trying to make it better. But I never asked if my soul could survive the version of the future I was creating. Baron looked at him quiet, then softly replied, and now you're asking. Elon nodded. For the first time, I'm not looking for progress. I'm looking for peace. Baron's voice was barely above a whisper. That's how it starts. Elon furrowed his brow. How what starts? The kind of faith that's not religion, but rescue, Baron said. The kind that says I'm tired of pretending. The kind that admits, I don't have all the answers. And then, only then, God whispers back, that's where I begin. A lump caught in Elon's throat. He'd spoken in boardrooms, on stages, across platforms that reached billions. But in this quiet library, it was a 19-year-old boy who had cracked open the vault of his heart. Baron, Elon said, trying to compose himself, do you think Jesus would accept someone like me? Someone who's doubted, questioned, messed up, stayed silent? Baron didn't hesitate. Jesus didn't come for the ones who already believed. He came for the ones who were too scared to. Elon closed his eyes for a moment, and then he whispered something only Baron, and perhaps heaven, heard. I'm scared, not of death, but of dying without ever being real. The words echoed. Baron reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small, a folded note. He handed it to Elon. I wrote this the night before we met, he said. Didn't know why, just felt like I had to. Elon unfolded it slowly. It read, Dear stranger, if you're reading this, I want you to know, you don't need to be perfect to be pursued by God. You just need to stop running. Elon stared at it, and that's when something inside him broke, not in despair, but in release. A single tear slid down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. He looked at Baron, voice shaking. Why did you write that? Baron smiled gently. Because I think Jesus told me you'd need it. Elon held the note in his trembling hands. The words pulsed with a strange warmth, like they had waited their whole life to be read by him. You don't need to be perfect to be pursued by God. You just need to stop running. He read it again, slower, softer, this time letting the words reach the places his success had never touched. Do you really believe he pursues us? Elon asked, voice raw. Baron leaned forward, his tone steady and full of quiet conviction. I don't just believe it, I know it. Not because I've earned it, but because I've felt it, in the silence, in the guilt. In the moments I didn't even believe in myself anymore. He still whispered my name. Elon swallowed hard. I've built rockets to reach the stars, Baron, but I've never once looked up and asked, "Are you there?" Baron nodded. And yet he's never stopped looking down, waiting. The words landed like soft thunder. Elon sat still for a long time. The billionaire, the genius, the builder of galaxies, quieted by grace. Then he looked up. "What do I do now?" he asked. Baron didn't give a sermon, no doctrine, just something honest. Talk to him, like a father, not to impress, just to be real. He's not looking for perfection, he's waiting for surrender. Elon nodded slowly, almost like a child learning to walk again. "And what if I don't know what to say?" "Then say that," Baron replied with a faint smile. "Say, 'I don't know what to say.' That's how most real conversations start." A light breeze moved through the window. Time felt different now. Elon closed his eyes, took a breath. And for the first time in a very long time, he didn't think about algorithms or expansion. He didn't calculate ROI or market value. He simply whispered into the quiet space of the universe, "God, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to stop running." No thunder rolled, no choir sang, but Baron smiled. "That's enough," he said. "He heard you." And in that fragile, beautiful silence, two men, one with all the world's influence and one still learning who he was, sat shoulder to shoulder in something far more powerful than politics or technology, grace. Later, when the media found out about the private conversation between Elon Musk and Donald Trump's son, theories exploded, speculation soared, headlines twisted it. But what really happened couldn't be captured in a headline. Because what really happened was this. A young man who had every reason to hide behind status chose to speak about Jesus with trembling honesty. And a man who had everything money could buy finally asked for what only heaven could give. Not a religion, not a spotlight, just peace. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the internet and the unseen corners of hearts, millions paused and asked themselves, what if the one thing I've avoided is the only thing that could heal me?